Well, I'd like to welcome to the Cannabis Podcast, Nicole Fenix, the Director of Education for Cleveland School of Cannabis. Nicole, thank you for joining us, and happy birthday to your son as
Oh,
well.
thank you. Yeah, quarter of a century. I'm feeling old today.
No, it's a milestone. It's a
It
milestone.
is.
I
It
remember
is.
being there not too long
Yeah.
ago. Uh,
He's the one that started well, we've had this journey, this cannabis journey together. So he has ulcerative colitis, and in high school he had an autoimmune, his asthma and allergies and whatnot. And so we started trying alternative medicines, and we came across CBD and just kind of snowballed. And so as I started with the school, he was getting his medical marijuana license, and we've had this journey together, and now he's off of all his pharmaceutical meds, and his quality of life is through the roof. And he played college football. It's just been and I look back to the last 6 years. I would have never thought I would be sitting here today, talking about cannabis. And boy, what I've learned is a mind blowing from the history to the science of it all, just to natural remedies in our world that doctors don't tell us about. And I guess I was really naive, because I've, knock on wood, been a very healthy person all my life. So I've never really come across it until dealing with my son. So the school and I have grown together over the years, which has been awesome. It's been really
that
awesome. So thanks for
that
having me.
is
I love talking about the school and the journey that we've been on.
what a journey. That's awesome to hear that it's more than it's personal.
Yes, very
It's
personal. It's
and
home every day.
the more to your point, the more I talk to people, the more I learn about this, the more I realize it is very personal to a lot of people, myself included.
Yeah.
I have two autoimmune diseases, alopecia and eczema, and
Mm,
I use CBD to help clear my
yeah.
alopecia.
Yeah.
And I just
Amazing.
sat there just like what? How
Why
come
didn't anyone tell me?
you know,
Yeah.
the first I heard about the endocannabinoid system, it blew my mind. And,
Mhm.
like you said, you don't really want to kind of admit that this information has intentionally not been told to us. And you're just like,
Right.
oh man. Anyway, let's be
I know.
positive
We
about
could
it.
we
And
could talk all about that. Yeah. I mean, it's so disheartening, especially as a parent. Like, you're looking and relying on these doctors, and then they're just like, and then no, we started like saying, he's using cannabis. That's why his colonoscopy's clean. Okay, maybe, like, no, it's the Remicade. Like, no one has ever said the
Mhm.
Remicade was destroying his liver, and then the cannabis was healing him. Like, that never crossed anyone's, lips, shall we
Yeah,
say.
it's
So
well, we're entering a new age, and we're
yeah.
entering a new era of discovery of science and technology, and I'm really excited about it. So that's why
Yeah.
I'm really excited to have you on to
Yeah.
tell myself and anybody else who is open-minded about the Cleveland School of Cannabis. And obviously, you said a little bit about why you started it, but can you give us kind of a 30,000-foot view of the school?
I mean, so the school was basically created by our founder, Austin Briggs, who was out in California, getting in the cannabis industry. And he's like, I would like to learn more. So his only option at that time was Amsterdam. And so he really realized there was a huge void in cannabis education. So he came back from Cleveland. He went to Kent State, and he was in the entrepreneurship uh, that cohort there. Anyway, so he's like, well, let's see if I can create a school. Is there a need for it? So what he did was he just did these weekend courses of cannabis education, and the turnout was amazing. And so this was started like 2016, 2017. And so he was like, oh, we're onto something here. So the school just kind of started off with these weekend courses, and there was a little bit of everything. And then it evolved into creating our programs and becoming, first we were the Cleveland Cannabis College. So we were a CCC, and then the state was like, you're not a college. So then they started the journey of academia. And so then we got certified by the Ohio State career schools and post-secondary. So we are certified by the Ohio Department of Education, and we have to follow a strict protocol. They come every 2 years and go through it. So, like, we're a legit school. And then recently behind me is our certification of accreditation by MSA, which gives us the recognizing us by the United States Department of Education. So once again, that was like a 2.5 year journey of just making sure we were doing everything according to the credentials that the United States, requires. So I've learned so much. I personally was a high school science teacher, so I come from
Cool.
this realm. So I was able, when I took the role of director of education, kind of like, this is how it's done, and it's evolved. So we started off, like, our most popular courses were obviously horticulture and cannabis cultivation, because everybody's so curious and wanting always to grow the best bud. So it's evolved. So currently there's a dispensary pathway, there's a horticulture pathway, there is a processing pathway, industrial hemp pathway, and which one did I miss? Medical. And then we have more of, like, what we call executive, or more comprehensive is a better term for it. So you can take a little bit of everything, and then you have that base knowledge. Which a lot of our students they come and they think, oh, I want to do processing. And they're like, well, wait, there's so much more to learn. So
Right.
we have a lot of people, not realizing the extent of education there is with cannabis.
Yeah. It's pretty fascinating to see what's the most popular course in demand that you guys, or that the major that you guys offer
So
right now that everyone flocks to.
it would be dispensary and cultivation, horticulture and cultivation. Because a lot of people, they want to go into cultivation, but I think dispensary, that's where the demand for jobs are right now, because that's, the retail space,
Hmm.
everyone's buying. The
Hmm.
consumers, the patients are buying. So that's where I see a lot of our students, or they, individually want to own their own dispensary. But we're starting to see a pickup in industrial hemp, just with how it's, with the passing of hempcrete with our United States building code. So it's kind of interesting, because medical always has a tick up and down, we have nurses that come, doctors, they just want to get that cannabis information, or weird, I've had doctors like, I don't even know what's legitimate resources. So just directing them to good books that they could read, and just kind of learn themselves.
Yeah. And, the VA doctors aren't even allowed to even, in the past, talk about it, let alone prescribe it. And,
Mhm.
I've talked to a lot of people I know that are pharmacists and things like that. And similar to what you said, they don't know where to go to get information.
Right. And there's so much, like, and it's like, what's the best use of my time,
Right.
So, and then the most updated. So, I mean, PubMed now has so many,
Yeah.
thousands now of research, which is awesome. Because I started teaching the ECS class back in 2017. I was brought on to help write curriculum, and that was a class that I helped create. And then worked more on the medical side with our patient navigation class. And those two really teach, how it works as a medicine. So, and we have so many students are so interested in that. Like, I know how to grow, but how does it all work? And how do I explain that to people and be that advocate? Like, that's another real big thing as our history class. Because I think it's so important that students and individuals understand prohibition of cannabis. Like, I personally, I didn't have any idea how bad it was. Like, and then the more I was like, this was so wrong. Like, it was just intense. Like,
I at Ohio University where I went, I graduated in '08, and I was
okay.
a political science major. So had I not been, and I love history, so had I not been obsessed with history, I would have never found it out on my own. How did you stumble across the endocannabinoid system and then the history of prohibition on your own?
So how I found about the ECS was I was working with homeschooled students, and kind of was getting a little too personal, because you're in their house, I'm like, I need
Right.
to change. And I came across they needed a curriculum writer for the ECS class at the Cleveland School of Cannabis. So I was like, and I have my master's in curriculum instruction. So I was like, I love creating curriculum and doing that. So I was like, So since it was for the ECS class, I just did a deep dive in teaching myself about the ECS. I have a science background, I was a biology major, so I understand the
Yeah,
nervous
cool.
system and all that. So I kind of taught myself and then created a slide deck when I went in for the interview. And that was how I came to be, a teacher and a curriculum writer at the school. And then the prohibition, my son's like you, he was a poli-sci major and a huge history buff. And once he was consuming products, he would be like, do you know this and this, the whole drug. So he did a huge thing on drug policy in college. And so that's what he wants to go into. He's in harm
Cool.
reduction and all that kind of stuff. So he's my informant.
Yeah.
And then
Yeah.
I've also taught part of the history class at the school. So the cannabis history course is really good at the school because it covers not only prohibition, but the history of the medical, like, how far back cannabis has been used as medicine. So that alone, like, tells me, I'm like, what, like from, topical paste to everybody having it in their medicine cabinet, it's just blows me away. Like, how can this plant be so evil if it's been used for centuries?
It'll
And
send you down a rabbit hole.
it
And
does. Yeah, that's a good way to put it. Yeah.
and that's where I enjoy going because, usually these days most people accept it, but in the past, wherever I'm the type of person where somebody says, don't look that way, I go, well, that's the first place I'm going to look. Of course, it's like,
Yeah.
don't touch the stove theory. And then,
Right.
you realize it's hot. And, when I did the same thing, I would tell my mom and friends, I'd be like, hey, did you know this about 1937 and all this?
Yeah.
And it gives you massive anxiety. You're like,
Right.
this really happened, that we were using, cannabis and pharmacology,
Right.
up,
1950. Yeah.
yeah. And then I found out about the Henry Ford hemp car,
Yeah.
and that just blew my mind. And then Jay Leno has like a mock-up of it
Oh,
now.
right. Yeah.
And I'm like, wait, so they know,
Right.
and it's really fascinating. And I did a little dive on the hemp car, and there's no records of it ever, which is fascinating to me. That's what it says on the Ford website.
No, right. So Jack Herer was the person he wrote The Emperor Wears No Clothes book.
Got it
And
right there.
oh yeah, I see it.
I
That
got
so
it's signed by him.
what's that?
It's signed by Jack Herrera.
Oh, that's awesome. Yeah, we had his son Dan did a green hour with us.
Cool.
So it's really cool. But that's one of the books we use for our history course. And then we also have incorporated it into our industrial hemp courses. But that, I mean, without Jack doing all digging deep, he really, his story is amazing too. And just the journey that he's been through. And he was well connected in Ohio. So actually, there's that Cannabis Museum in Athens.
I don't know when it opened.
Yeah, it just opened. I think it's been about a year now. I just met the owners, Dave, Dan, and Sarah,
Okay.
because I've been working with Simon Dunkel with Normal, who's kind of a legacy person. So I've been pulled into this advocacy work at the school. So we're having a town hall with issue 2 passing. And it's been a real eye opener just hearing stories from the past people, just going, it's just, I'm so amazed with the people that really put their life on the line, like Brownie Mary and Dennis Perone, like how they just were out there, really walking the talk and going to jail and organizing people and making sure people got them at, like, I think our jobs are easy now. Like, it's
Thanks
almost
to
like
them.
a hip culture right now, like,
They're all saints in my book.
yeah,
And they really, really took a lot of bullets, for
yes,
people. And it's the history of cannabis. I tell people all the time, I'm like, if you want to just know the history of America, just study the history of cannabis
that's true.
in America, because it touches, no pun intended, it branches out to every category:
It really
medicine,
does.
science, racism, economics,
Finances, yeah,
finances,
yeah,
everything. And it's fascinating.
right. That's, I guess, the first time I really comprehended the power of, large companies like DuPont and Hearst,
Mhm.
pharmaceutical companies, like, it's their agenda and they're able to to make it happen because of, pulling strings or having puppets, basically,
And
Um,
when because all pills are synthetic and
mm,
they're reverse engineered from basically a plant, really.
yes.
And I looked at that and I had this epiphany. I was like, well, oh, ibuprofen was the beginning of the opioid pandemic. It,
Hmm.
it wasn't fentanyl or it wasn't, the
Just
heavier
took it up
part.
a notch, right?
Right. It's just now we're on the opioids on steroids. And
Yeah.
I don't know, maybe you can confirm or not confirm this. I tell people, I hope I'm not wrong, but in so many ways, ibuprofen is a synthetic replication of CBD.
Oh, yeah. So I've like swapped out. I used, I'm an athlete, and so I don't take a lot, but sometimes I would take ibuprofen just for anti-inflammatory.
Mm-hmm.
And now we just do CBD. Like, don't go take an ibuprofen, go take a CBD. All my kids that play sports, and that's our go-to. We don't ever take ibuprofen anymore because of
Mm-hmm.
the damage on your organs. And that's, I mean, all cannabinoids are anti-inflammatory. So, I mean, you can't go wrong even with the acidic forms.
Right.
And so that's the part, like everyone just not that I don't want to, dog THC, but there's so much more to this plant than the THC molecule. And people just are so obsessed with that. And, I'm almost like, I don't even want to talk about THC,
Wait,
even though it's great for pain 100%. If you're in severe pain, THC is the molecule to go to. Um,
when I
and
was working in the dispensary in LA, I worked at a dispensary for about 3-4 years. Then I worked in a testing lab
okay.
before we got our license to test, and it left right before COVID.
Mm-hmm.
And so I've kind of dabbled in the multiple work for brands and stuff like that. So
Sure.
we call them THC chasers. And
Okay.
when we're in the dispensary, because they come in and they're like, I just want the highest THC, and I'm like, that's not really what you're looking for. Like, I think I know what you're looking for. The biggest, best euphoric, you know,
Right, right.
high, but it's not the THC that's doing that alone. And
Mm-hmm.
most people don't really care. They're just I don't care, man. Just give me something. But it's I'm in the middle of a dry January. I don't drink, and
Okay.
so my dry January is not smoking for a month
Okay.
to reset my tolerance and
Sure.
reset my body.
Mm-hmm.
And February 1st always comes around, and man, I feel like I'm back in high school when I have it takes me like one puff, and I'm just like, oh my gosh, this is
Yeah.
phenomenal. And out of all the psychedelics and other things that I've tried, pills was one thing I never gravitated to for whatever reason.
Mm-hmm.
In my body, I had friends OD and really ruin their lives because of it. And
Sure.
growing up in Ohio, you're in Ohio, it's a huge problem in the Midwest. And are you seeing a lot of people interested in that, going from opioids to the plant, that are coming to the school?
Yes. I mean, we've had students, that are have addiction, or they've had friends, and so yes, that's been really one of the coolest thing is a lot of our students are witness to cannabis as a medicine, from opioids to migraines to, whatever you name it, like they
Mm-hmm.
walk through our doors. So it's just that it really creates a nice community at the school because there's a commonality there of, cannabis is truly the medicine that helped save me. So it's that is like one of the coolest things is having that, just to be able to hear their stories and their passion for the plant. We've had doctors that come. We had a green hour. I had Gabby from Medicaid Ohio come on and talk about her journey, and I had one of our instructors, or no, it was actually a student, but she's a doctor, and she like emailed me on the side. She's like, thank you so much. I had my sister watch this, and now she's willing to try cannabis to combat, the opioids that she's been on forever.
It's
So
awesome.
some real powerful stuff, I'll tell you that much. Like some days
That's
I'm like, wow. like
it's the power of
and
the
that's why I
plant.
really get frustrated with our medical system, like there's so much more that our, traditional doctors or nurses, or I guess the whole infrastructure could do to make it so much better for their patients.
It really, people like yourself and the whole community, because it really is a community of people that have personal, stories and journeys with it. Takes a lot to suppress, your anger kind of
Mm.
with the system and just focus on the positive of going forward,
Mm-hmm.
and one person at a time. And I know people in Georgia, where it's now finally being able to, in pharmacies, they can, prescribe some stuff in pharmacies there. They're one by one kind of going, hey, Brett, what do and I'm smiling because I'm like, not me, but the Jack Herrera's and the people that are actually really kind of legitimizing the industry are winning, and it's just a matter of
Yeah,
time.
I know it's great. We've had a lot of victories, but we also are constantly battling like our LMS system. They just kicked us off. Like we can't text anymore because we're not allowed to use the SMS system. I guess whatever company it is, you can't say the word cannabis or even CBD. And so, of course, we're like cannabis with the S being a dollar sign, just work around. Like before, I just
Yep.
wouldn't even use the word. And then I'm like, this is so dumb. So I started using, anyways, I'm sure a lot of people were doing the same thing.
I use a little at symbol.
Yeah, and just like different things, and somehow we got play. So we can't even text anymore to our students, which is really frustrating. Countless banks that just shut our accounts down, So right, Pat, Dayton has been great. Like I think every cannabis company's like,
That's where I
uh,
grew up,
yeah, oh yeah, yeah,
right
okay,
by Right Pat.
all right. So that
Beaver Creek,
they,
Beaver Creek.
yeah, all right, cool.
I'm
So
glad to
yeah,
hear
I
that
mean,
though.
it's crazy. Like it's like, and then I'm part owner of a hemp company, and it was like the thing. I'm like, this is the dumbest thing ever. Like, just the hiccups with Square and whatnot. And just like trying to help our students afford to go to the school. Like we can't, federal funding, like and
Yeah.
all that. And then and in Ohio, there's no, this is an industry, but there's no training. There's no like Ohio means jobs. Like they are all, everyone's afraid to, they come, they're initially interested. And then I think they get told no, like from the high ups. And so it's just really sad because this is an industry like anything else. Like you imagine not training other industries, even though this is going to be one of the biggest industries in Ohio, like, but we're not going to make sure it's run with educated,
Mhm.
employees. So it's
It's
just kind of a
it's
disconnect,
it's
right?
insane. It's insane.
Yeah.
And it's the plant is obviously the way it grows, and I look at it as like a huge metaphor, the way it's slowly kind of creeping up and
Yeah.
branching up, and
So fun to watch. Yeah.
that plant through the concrete, is going to grow no matter what. And
Mhm.
it's really, I went up to Mendocino a few times to see up there and the way they grow it. It's truly big agriculture up there.
Sure.
And I look up and there's helicopters up there, and they tell me it's the feds and they know we're there. And I'm just sitting there, and it all kind of clicked to me, kind of what was going on. And I won't get into that.
Yeah.
But, you know, being a cash business, it's,
Mhm.
it's super, I guess in Ohio, it's obviously still cash, right?
Yeah.
Because are there any credit unions or banks or anybody that are willing to work with you?
So they did try to do those workarounds, but then the federal government like kind of got caught wind of it, with debit cards and stuff. And
Mhm.
then so some still work, some don't, it's just, I mean, it just makes it really complicated for the consumers.
Yeah.
So no, like we like the traditional Ohio bank, we like, I remember our previous campus director like would literally take off his school shirt and go in his undershirt, to go to deposit checks, like it's just like, we go under CCC training is the name of the company, it's
Yeah.
not, it's just having the word cannabis in our school name just really is disruptive. But it is what it is. And we have our faculty is so amazing. Like they're I guess what you call, quote unquote traditional, we have doctors and lawyers and businessmen, like it's not like they're all coming from, the the darkness of the growing cannabis, you know, the cannabis underground. You know, we do have some legacy people that work there, work at the school because they bring great knowledge. So, but just that, you know, that assumption that, oh, you're all just smoke pot all day, you know, I'm like, we don't. I mean, sometimes, but you know, it's not like it's a big party, a big rave, you know, throughout the school day. It's books and studying and homework assignments and big projects and a lot of learning in a pretty rapid pace. So it's a real school. And I think sometimes students come and they're like, oh, like this is like we have to like take notes and stuff,
Right.
you know.
It's truly deprogramming of what people think of
Yeah.
traditional, you know, stoners or whatever. And I
Right.
always ask people, obviously I can't tell people what to do, but myself, I do it. I always ask people, like, if you are a user, whether it's topical, CBD, flower,
Sure.
be more open about it. And that's the only way it's going to destigmatize, you know, if you're a successful person in business, but yet, I mean, we know a lot of people
Right.
that do other drugs and drink a lot of
Sure.
alcohol in other
Yeah.
industries. And that's never, I mean, those are Super Bowl ads, you know, it's
Yeah. We were just talking about that. Yeah. Right. I mean, I know even like in my family, like, you know, it's like, don't like my own mom's like, don't tell people, you know, he uses cannabis. I'm like, but we should be yelling this from the mountaintop. Like, you know, my one cousin has Crohn's and I was like, dude, come on, get your medical license, you know, and he works for the clinic, you know, he's like, you know, and I'm like, oh, at least do CBD. Like, come on, like you gotta, you know, like we're not getting any younger and you know, it's going to continue to get worse. And so it is hard. And then even people that, you know, have consumed forever are still like, they go all the way around the corner, you know, if you're out, you know, or hide it, you know. So, or just even family gatherings, like I've
right.
noticed, like, you know, we were going out at Christmas, we got like all the 21-year-olds and we're going down to the flats and, you know, having a bong sitting on a table, like, you know, I'm like, all right, I'm good with that, you know, but I didn't know how my siblings and their children would take it, you know, even though
Right.
they're all over 21, you know, like
Right.
did make sure none of the younger kids came, but it was, you know, changing you know, that paradigm shift of this is normal. Like we can have a bottle of vodka or whiskey or whatever, can have a, you know, bong out
Right.
and a bag
And
of, you know, flour.
I can imagine the censorship you guys get, because even just trying to form this Facebook page and cannabis page, you know, I tried to put on Facebook just Cannabis Quarterly and it wouldn't allow it. It says you can't use the word cannabis. And then I tried to do CQ and then it said you had to have at least 3 letters. But then I go to GQ and they have a page. And I'm like, this is wait, that's like
What?
those little incidences where you learn through experience. You're like, this is a whole thing.
Yeah.
And you know, my Instagram page is suppressed and, you know, you know, a lot of other people's are. And unless
Yeah.
you type out the whole name, it won't even come in and come up. And that I don't know when that ends, maybe when legalization and all that stuff, but
Yeah. I think,
perfect timing. Last night, the FDA on a Friday night news dump, they, Xavier Becerra, he did a FOIA request for the DEA study about
okay.
the rescheduling recommendation.
Yeah.
And until last night, they were refusing
To show it.
to show it. And then when they did, it was all redacted and everything. But last night they finally dumped it, you know, Friday night, you know, of
Yeah, of course.
course.
Yeah.
And it said, you know, this is a therapeutic thing. The FDA scientists recommend that it's rescheduled. And so
Hmm.
now you know why the DEA was refusing to show it. And
Sure.
you know, what happens next, you know, after that, you know, other than a
I know.
Congress or president. Like I have no idea of where, you know, the next steps would be after that.
Right.
Um,
Yeah.
yeah.
I mean, it's just so funny. I just, since I started at the school, you know, I feel like, you know, with CBD, I've been saying for the last, every time, like, they're going to make it, you know, now I'm like, they'll never make it, you know, I've given up. I don't even like, we barely talk about it. But,
Mhm.
so yeah, it's nice with that. We have what's called our green hour and we
Cool.
have industry leaders that come on, you know, like kind of like this. And we talk about, wide variety of topics. So we've had CEOs, we've had Ben from Veritas, cannabis infused beverages. Yesterday we had an ASTM person talk about standards, and that was really interesting. So that's a real big benefit that our school provides that a lot of other cannabis schools do not have. It's that you get to go to this green hour and ask your own questions to these industry leaders. And we've had over we must be close to 80. And we used to do it in person, but then through COVID, we started doing Zoom, and then we're like, wait, this opens up the whole United States or even globally. So we've had tissue culture people, we've had geneticists, everything from, patients to doctors, medical marijuana doctors, the whole 9 yards. And wow, it's been quite a ride. So that's probably another really great value that our school offers, just to connect our students with industry people, 3 times a term, and then they're all recorded. So you could literally go watch, 80 hours worth of one-on-one conversations with these individuals. Pretty cool stuff.
That's a plethora of information I'm probably going to go through too. Are you guys having to add or change any of your criteria based on the new law that passed, and or anything like that?
Oh yeah, we are always updating. We pride ourselves in keeping our curriculum in real time. So yeah, what I do is I pull information and then I'll send it to, faculty and be like, yeah, incorporate this. So we've been it's impossible to stay up on issue 2 and all the changes right now. And that's a whole job in itself. All
Right.
that House bills coming through. We have some great resources. We are having a town hall virtually coming up February 4th. So I'll send you that information if you can help spread the word. And we're just talk through what issue 2 looked like when it was passed by our, people of the Ohio people, and what it's evolving to and what we're fighting for, at the Capitol. So, we call on people to go and give witness and talk, there's so many different topics that you can focus in on with issue 2, from social equity to, home grow, to the hemp, how they're trying to revamp all the hemp rules, even though federally they're legal. So that's a whole nother conversation I won't jump into. But yeah, so I personally pride myself in trying to stay at that tip of the spear, and then always sharing it with our students and sharing it with the population, as best as we can. And that takes, a lot of our faculties so helpful in doing that as well, since they're kind of there's the specialty of their field, whatever course it is. But we also have our hemp research license. So we grow hemp on campus. So
Awesome.
we've had about 7 harvests, and that's been awesome. So we always have plants in veg, clones, and then in flower, and then students get to harvest. They get to, do pruning, they get to take clones, and then we have a processing lab. So they get to, collect the trichomes, press it for rosin. And then we have a mock dispensary that we created with Dutchie POS system. Dutchie donated their POS system. So I have a whole mock dispensary that I created, with real products that are in the Ohio system. So students, we have an e-commerce section. They just scan the QR code, and they get to really, it's a real dispensary. It's small, but it's just so they get a lot of hands-on experience.
That is really cool.
Yeah, the Dutchie lab experience is gonna take off next term. So we've been really growing a lot in that perspective. A lot of hands-on activities on campus.
That's awesome that you have a real world setting and for people to experience. And you mean you don't use the same textbooks for 50 years and never update
I know.
them? What do you mean?
I come from an alternative high school setting, so I know how important multisensory learning is and kinesthetic learning. And so we're just really trying to mimic what do we see in the industry, and have it at our school. So we're really trying to, as close as we can. Obviously, we're not selling our plants. We're not making a lot of money. So we have to throw everything away, so that, within reason. Our next step with our grow room is to set up a fertigation system, So we just brought on a new instructor who came from Air Wellness, and he's going to help us navigate that. So I'm really working hard to bring faculty members in that came from the industry. And then, you know, I'm constantly reaching out to people that are in the industry in Ohio. We have our program advisory committee that includes people from Riviera Creek, from Lighthouse Sciences. Just, you know, we want to have our school help create employees that are going to be the next leaders in the cannabis industry. You know, not just get in and work there, but be the next leaders. And so we need to make sure they know what they're doing, you know, that they can take that job and really excel. And I've seen it. It's been awesome. I go to expos and I see students and they're like in a managerial position, you know, either compliance or running, you know, the edibles section or the lead cultivator. So it's been really, really awesome now that we're seeing, you know, people rise into those positions and wanting to come back, you know, and help at the school or share their knowledge. And it really helps, you know, with jobs too. Like they'll be like, hey, we have, you know, we're building this new facility. We're going to need 30 new employees.
That's
So
awesome.
great connections. And I have to say, people are really responsive when I ask for help. It's been really, really nice.
That's, I have nothing but, you know, admiration for the way you guys are approaching it. And that's going to turn into eventually when you see, hey, I went to Cleveland School of Cannabis. Okay, I can trust that they know what they're talking about and they care.
Right. I mean, and that's like, we have, you know, so many students at Galena's, Rise Dispensary, Lighthouse Sciences, Standard Wellness, you know, and they're like, it's so nice because they come with information we haven't, you know, heard sometimes.
Right.
And just the passion for the plant, you know, you can't really instill that, you know, you either got it or you don't. And then just always wanting to learn and, you know, you might start off and maybe trimming, like that's not your end all, but you know, that's where you start off. And then certain openings, you show that you're a dedicated employee and you come to work, you know, it's not, you know, a party. Your job's a job sometimes. Got to do stuff you don't really want to do. But then when things open, they're willing to take a chance on you and to teach you. And so a lot of our students do have that determination and have really worked their way up in companies. And so it's awesome.
That's, you know, myself and yourself and a lot of other people have had just to gain knowledge through personal experience over the years. And now it's going to be able to be condensed and actually put into practice. And it's awesome. I could talk for hours with you about all this, but I know you got to run to some activities for the birthday. Yes, and I'll let you jump off, but where can everybody find you online and the events and everything? Tell everybody where they can find you.
So csceducation.com. If you go there, we have all the different tabs, but csceducation.com and everything you need to know, you can register right on that website now. They've made it real easy. You can go on, you could take one class, you could take 4 classes and group it as a major. And and then all our events are posted. We do have an open house on this Wednesday coming up. I believe, the 17th, I believe is Wednesday. And so, come and learn about it at our open house. And then we have February 4th, our town hall about learning about issue 2. So if you're in Ohio, I would highly recommend coming and learning from all the people that are at the tip of the spear.
Very cool. Thank you for joining us. Can't wait to speak to you again. Thanks, enjoy the birthday activities.
Thank you. I will.
And thanks again and take care. We'll talk to you soon.
All right. Appreciate your time, Brett. Thank you.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
All right. Cheers.